Hi guys, I'm Jen. Welcome to my channel. Today's video I want to make about settling and how I know when I'm doing it. So I think you're gonna have this in a lot of different areas of life. So this can be in work, where you settle in work thinking like this is the best it's ever gonna be. This can be in relationships where you think like this is the best that I can partner up with. And I think just in general, like lifestyle, thinking like this is all I can ever get. And the reason it's settling is because you've achieved something more than where you started. So you've had some level of growth. And for me, whenever I started growing, it felt like I was taking huge steps and it was big for me. But in reality, at a bird's eye view, I could see like if I like having some experience now of where I'm trying to grow even more. Like I look back and see like those first steps were big steps because they were so different from what I was doing, from the patterns that I was living. And so it felt huge. So I'm like, oh my God, this is the answer. And so, like, I went from religion or a religious sort of traditional lifestyle to spirituality. But in reality, I'm like, my religious thinking of like me wanting to have a traditional family setting was tied up in very it's interesting because I grew up in an environment where it's like very traditional, but like a lack of boundaries. So like you can talk about a traditional background, but at the same time, I was required to totally disregard my self-respect, self-worth, and any sort of self-esteem. And those areas of my life were not developed, but I was raised to be submissive and obedient. And so traditional, a lot of people will talk about traditions being like really, nostalgic and wonderful to be tied into. But like when I took some time away from those environments, I could see where there was a lot of toxicity woven into them. And the same thing happened when I was in spirituality. So in religion, it was like overly controlled environments and suppressed, right? And really made me to focus on everybody else's needs except for my own. And so in spirituality, it's almost like on the other side of things, where it's like, well, here you get to do whatever you want. And honestly, a lot of the same sort of ideas were promoted just differently, in the way that like a lot of the twin flames and soulmates were promoted in some of these corners of spirituality. You know, really promoting things like waiting on a person that has chosen somebody else. And a lot of this may be just in the spiritual community, or sorry, in the tarot community, but it was also it wasn't just the tarot community where I was noticing a lot of toxic messages coming through, but it was also uh, like like where religion was so controlled and conformed. Spirituality was similar because you're for everybody. And I learned how to see the wounding in others and accept that. But at the same time, to me, that was kind of like, this bowl of porridge is too hot and this bowl of porridge is too cold. And I had to keep moving to find the bowl of porridge that was just right, just to kind of make it, to explain what I'm going after here. And so I couldn't just stop at spirituality because it felt like free flowing, but almost too free flowing. And I find a lot of, material and messages in spirituality can be like, really exploitative to women still, and really has a lot of gray zones and a lack of accountability. And so in religion, it was very like controlled, suppressed, but very similar in the same way, because in spirituality, like you're just all love and light and everything's amazing because everything's happening for you. And just let it go. And yeah, and there's some God energy in there too, like go with God and let it flow, God's got your back. And like that's not to say that these things aren't happening, but what I found in these different environments is I had to take certain things and leave a lot of other things, and keep it moving. And so I also, after I went from religion, then I went to spirituality, and then I went to like, I don't know if I believe in anything. And now I'm kind of like, I believe in things, but I just don't think they're happening the way a lot of other people believe it to be happening. And I don't connect the same way that other people connect with God or source energy or whatever. I don't even know what the name is, because somebody made that name uh, in a time where women were not valued. And so like the Bible being written way back when women had no rights and were just really servants of man, to me that is a very outdated belief system. And while there are some really great lessons and values that are promoted in throughout the Bible, there's a lot of messed up stuff in there too, like interwoven. And so, like, to me, like, I had to live my life to experience what this was so I could start pulling apart the weave and that safety net that I was using in my life as a delusional belief system that was holding me to a life that was not for me. And so, it's been really challenging to kind of trial and error this to see, like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, I really want to do this, but like, this feels unsafe. And, and I had to look at, like, when I'm doing something, I also had a lot of people who were maybe better off financially, but like, when I look at their health and their lifestyle, like, they're miserable. And so they'd be promoting these messages to me, like, you need to get a job, you need to do this, you need to do that. But I'm like, but look at your lifestyle. And the thing is too, is like, I had to look at the advice where it was coming from, because I'm like, well, I would look up to people, and this is part of my settling in belief systems that don't work. And because I'm like, well, these people, this seems to be working for them, but because they're taking from somebody else. So, or they're not going where I'm going. And so some people will give you advice and it's based on their belief systems, but like, how far have they got in life and how did they get to where they are? Because there's a lot of people promoting certain things, but they had either help, they stepped on other people, they use and abuse other people to get where they're going. They're very good at wearing a facade, and pretending they're more successful than they are. And if you actually were to backtrack and look for evidence and receipts of how they got to where they are now, a lot of people are actually very codependent and have not gotten to where they are for the right reasons, and so, or based on the right intentions of life. And so that's where I've had to do a lot of my work by myself, in the way that, like, having to find out what is for me and what is not. And settling has really helped me, because it's this allows me, when I keep moving, like, I found there were extremes that I was tying into as well. So like, when you tie into stereotypes, um, it's interesting, because some people like to put stereotypes on certain cultures and races and things like that, and even not even just that, but even like status levels, and whether it be rich or the poor. And so I've been finding a lot of different things that just aren't matching up with the messages that I've been taught in my lifestyle, in my life, I guess, for my lifestyle. And I just think, I had to look at, like, if I would have settled. So settling is like a lack of information, education, and experience. And so when I keep putting myself out there in, challenging situations where I'm like, you know what, no, I don't want to go back to that. I want to move forward in this. And then I also want to, like, I would apply this in, like, when you experience pain from a certain group, from a certain sex and gender, from a certain dynamic, the idea is, like, not to carry that image with you, but like the behaviors of that person. And that's how I stepped away from, like, hating men and saying it's all men. I mean, for me, it's been the majority of the men that I've met. I have not met a man that can match my energy, that can match my effort, that can match my level of curiosity for learning and growing. On a personal level, I have not met that, to where I want to, like, move closer to a man at this time. That's no one. I've not met anyone who says I want to know more. That's just my experience. And some people may be, well, that's really snobby of you. Well, you know what? That's where I'm at. That's my level of growth, and that's where there are things. There's behaviors. See, I have to label it as behaviors. When I see a behavior in somebody, to me, that shows me, like, something they're not doing, and they haven't chosen for themselves. So if they haven't chosen it for themselves, they're not going to be able to choose it for me. And so there's things where, like, in order for me to meet my partner or people, I have to get myself to a certain level of growth where now I can have matching energy. And so if I haven't created that work within myself and gotten the experience myself, like, the more I get experience in life, the more I have something to kind of hold to my old belief systems, and be like, well, this isn't true, this isn't play out, this doesn't make sense. And a lot of things I find in these different groups, like religion and spirituality, is a lot of narcissism, in the way that it's there's still, like, a pattern underlying pattern I see in both of them where it has kept me stuck still. And while some of the issues have allowed me to, like when I went into spirituality, it really allowed me to self-reflect more, which I find helpful. So it's not like there's not helpful things in these areas to take from. It's just you're not, like when we talk about the extremes, it's like for me I had to look at like I can rock with this, but it does not. And so like for me, when I see something happening like that, it kind of makes me think of like the enabler and the narcissist. So like when people are like really in certain environments, it's just kind of like how I decide who I rock with and who I don't. I see who you're around, I see those behaviors. Is that messy? Is that toxic? Is it codependent? Is that going to require me to carry a burden that is not mine? And I look at that and I say, this is unsafe or safe. And so there's a refinement, which is like kind of like where the settling for me applies. Is like, okay, so like when I made that first big step into from religion to spirituality, I couldn't just stop there. I had to keep going, right? But it felt like that big stop. And I thought when I went into that spirituality, I was so intrigued with it, and there's so much going on. And it seemed so much more lighter and happier, but it was almost like my head up in the clouds, where with religion, I felt really heavy and burdened. And so like having those different experiences still left me wanting to, like, I still didn't have the answers, I still wasn't attaining my goal, and so I had to keep it moving. And so like it's the same with people. If you're not matching my energy, now it feels heavy, now it feels like a burden, and now it feels like you're pulling on me like a small child. And being a single mother, there is a PTSD associated with having to not only like care for children on your own, because the kid's father left me, like, you know, there was no support. It was just me taking care of the kids. My family was not involved in a helpful way, and his family cut ties. No grocery cards, no nothing. Like it was just, you know, I was the problem, I was the trouble, because I didn't put up with her son's bad behavior, and I couldn't, you know, manage it or tolerate his abusive behavior. Now I was the problem. And so I've had a lot of experiences in life like that, where it's like when I speak up to advocate for myself, a lot of people get really angry. And it's not even that, like there's people that don't get angry, but they still require me to like coddle them. And it's been really heavy, because it's like if I were to it's interesting, because like that's another thing, is like abusive people and settling in behaviors where these people you know, it's easy to see that miserable, like a really aggressive bully who's like doesn't care who sees them and just says, this is just who I am, put up with it. But there's the other side of the extremes, where there's those bullies that are very friendly to your face and everybody else thinks they're a great person, but you can see that they targeted you, and so they'll say hi to everyone else but you. They'll try to make you feel excluded because you didn't kiss their ass, you didn't jump on their chariot of bullshit. And so having boundaries was easier with those people where I didn't have to see them on a regular basis, but it's been much more challenging when there's people where they're in your immediate environment and you know who they are, you can see who they are, but you can't speak up on who they are because nobody really wants to listen. So that's a heavy burden I've had to recognize as well. And it's easier to have boundaries with certain groups than other groups, and like that, and I had to recognize this is their agenda. Like, so people will come to you like in a victim-y kind of way, but also a friendly kind of way. It's very hard to say no to these sort of individuals when they're they kind of appear shy, vulnerable, helpless, but in reality you can see on the other side that they play a different you know, version of themselves. And then there's the ones that are like overly friendly to everybody else. So the loudest one in the room, they're super cheery, they're very good with children, and they're just kind of like the popular girl, like they're very popular, or man. And it's very they're doing these things, and then the ones that really want to help you, like a lot of people that want to help me, like, and it's confusing because you're like, well, there are people that really want to help other people, because I enjoy helping people too, but I have a limit. And so there's some people that really use that I'm helping people, or I'm helping you, as a facade. And so it's been challenging to find out who is for me and who is not. And not only that, but it's important to tie yourself into like how these people do make you feel. A lot of people in the spiritual community will say, well, their energy, I can feel their energy. And like I can feel the energy now because I have the experience of that person and recognizing who they are and what that means. But before, when I was in a spiritual community, I felt something was off, but I couldn't pinpoint it. So a lot of people talk about, oh, they have good energy, but like I'm like, well, your behaviors show me that you're not able to read energy because you're still making these kind of decisions. And if you haven't realized these decisions, then you can't see how that energy is affecting you. So like there's a lot of things where a lot of people are saying stuff and it sounds really convincing. And so you have to do your own groundwork. And like so that's where it's like taking some I had to take people's information and apply it to my life and be like, no, this does not work. And then when I look at the person who told me that advice, I'm like, you've got money, you've got all these numbers, but like you're not doing it the right way, because the information you gave me is, when I go to do it, it's not adding up. The math is not adding up. And that's politician energy. And that's that people that are for everybody. They're really friendly. They seem really helpful. They like to use that, they like to be a member in their community. So like they're doing it for status. They're doing it for supply. And you see this in like vulnerable sectors. This is like in social services and things like that. You can see that if you're the new person in a new environment, people are going to hone in on you. Anything when you're starting over new, look for when you're in trouble. That's when people show up. That's when the vultures show up, because it's like people who either want to push on you and suppress you, but there's also people that want to use and abuse you as well, because they see you as like they're opportunistic and they want to take from you. And so I've had to learn how to become aware of all these individuals and how to recognize them for who they are. And like I said, it can feel heavy because a lot of them will try to tiptoe around. And if you recall, this is like with men. Like I've had men who will pretend to want to be my friend, but I can tell like you have romantic intentions. And if they were to come talk to me right up to my face and come out with their intentions, I would tell them right off the bat, like I'm not attracted to you. I'm never going to be attracted to you. And there are women that I have the same thing where like, it's like this is like me. I'm trying to move. I look at the direction I'm moving in, and I see people's actions and like their lifestyles, and I'm like, if it's not matching, it doesn't make sense. That's just the truth of it. So like, for me, if someone's not actively looking to get in shape, watch what they're eating, hermiting themselves when they're feeling like they can't be by themselves. Those are red flags for me. Like, because I've had to go through hermit mode, and I'm not coming out until I get to where I'm going. And so I think it's interesting where there's some people who try to portray themselves like they've done the work, and they really haven't. And so like they make it's not deep enough for me to call them out, but they're still kind of like what is it, beating around the bush. And it's irritating because it's like it's fatigue, and it's like I know you're lying, I know you're not who you say you are, but it's not that deep for me to come call you out. But at the same time, now I'm like, so this is a challenge with boundaries, is like they haven't actually done anything to you, but they've lied to your face. That's huge. Lying is a huge, like, if you're why are you lying to me? I don't even know you. Like, you're lying to a stranger. So if you're lying to a stranger, you're going to be lying to your partner, because like there's more accountability there, there's more depth there, like more is riding on it. So like this is interesting where people think like, oh, it's no big deal, like, and I can lie to that person. But like that's already like that's a sign. Like when you're lying to yourself about who you are, then you're lying to yourself about who I am. And to me, this whole dishonesty thing, that's how I've stopped settling, is like because I've had to get in touch with the painful truth of my life, why what's happening is happening, and what I need to do to change it. And it has to do with me and not to other people. And so like a lot of people can get caught up in that stage where you're being targeted, bullied, and abused, and they sit there and they stay in the resentment phase. And so unfortunately that's where they become an extreme, and they say, oh, this is that, and life sucks, and my life sucks, and nothing good ever happens to me. It's like, well, what good are you doing to yourself? How are you treating yourself? So there's a lot of different extremes and settling that happens. And like I said, like the more you sit in it, the more you become aware of it, and so you can change it. But a lot of people will deflect it and walk away from it or make excuses. And so the best thing for me to work through settling is to give myself time and space to rest and reflect. And anytime I give myself the time, Now there are times where like I've been mulling something over for a period of time, and then I go and make a decision, and that's where you find out, okay, was that the choice that I was supposed to make? Maybe not. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. So you learn. But some people will ride that fence so hard that they lose like the balls of life, to where they just don't make any decision, and so they're just sitting there waiting for something to happen. And it's kind of like, this is where I see in religion, it's kind of like, let's just pray about it. Well, that's great, but like prayer is one thing, but action is another. And if you don't take action, like you, and this is where I just don't believe in the idea of like God coming back to save those that have like invested in him, because it sounds very, for me, that's like a inaction energy, and that really is just kind of waiting for someone else to save you energy. And that to me is like, that's allowing somebody else to take control of your life, and just using God. Oh, God must not want this for me, or God must have chosen this, or God must have done this. I was like, well, no, as a whole in society, we all suck right now, and we're not doing what we all need to be doing. And so we're blaming everybody else but ourselves. There's a real lack of accountability in society, and so like these belief systems tend to pile on. And then same with religion, is kind of like, or sorry, spirituality is like, well, you're not manifesting properly. Well, manifesting, requires action, but it also requires like experience too. So like you have to take the action, and when you have an excuse as to why something didn't happen, you keep doing the same thing over and over again, and you don't look at what you're doing and how you're a common denominator, that can really affect your results. So, you know, um, I could be surrounded by haters all I want. If I'm gonna let those haters get in my head, that's gonna affect my results. That's gonna affect how I put myself out there. That's gonna affect my fear levels, and say like thinking that these people actually have control over me. Um, and while it can seem like there's a number of people against you at times, it's kind of like, when you think of a school bus, you're going to see a school bus. And so like I had to learn how to get out of my head and into action. And what that was is like, whenever I thought I was thinking about somebody too much, and how they're affecting my life, I had to go start taking action towards myself and my life. So I think it's important to recognize settling, because settling is stuck. And for me, in my experience, it has been in an extreme. And to me, it's best to be in the middle, where I can live my life where I'm aware of people, like the potential of people that, before I used to be like overly trusting. And then I used to be really overly paranoid, like everybody's, out to get me and this and that. And now I'm coming back to a center where I'm like, no, this person is, maybe they don't have these kind of intentions, but they also don't have this sort of potential or intention. And to me, it's also recognizing where I've been programmed to not feel like I can confront people or speak up or just avoid people based on, like, there's so many times where I just would stay for way too long. And this is like, this is also like just being kind to people for way too long. And you know what? I've recognized, if you don't have a conversation with me about your intentions, then I don't need to have a conversation with you about like why I'm not for you, and why I don't want to speak to you, and why I don't want to be around you, because it's not my job anymore. And I think that's part of this whole like healing and hermit mode, is like paying attention to like what makes you tired and what is exhausting, and recognizing like I do love to help people, but at the same time there is a level where people are just, if you give them an inch, they take a mile. And that is not my job to parent any person. I have my own two kids. Those are my only two kids, and they are now young adults at this time. So like I'm still responsible in the way that, they have their own lives, and they have to take responsibility for their own lives, and I'm here to guide and support them. But at the same time, like, outside of that, I don't know anybody anything. I'm not tied into anybody. And so, just because I have a good nature to myself does not mean I have to sit and tolerate people who ride the line. This is with their comments, trying to insinuate that we are closer than we are. I don't tolerate that. I don't like that. And it gives me the ick factor when that happens, when someone tries to tie themselves to me and I don't even know you. Like, I can be friendly, but it doesn't make me your friend. I'm friendly to every face I meet, unless you give me a reason to not be friendly. Or if I don't have the energy that day, I'm not going to be as friendly. But some people will take that friendly face and try to twist it into something that it's not. And what that means is some people will try to make you appear that you're weaker, and that just because you're friendly to anyone and everyone, that you must be desperate for time and attention, and that is not the case. And so you got to recognize, some people are really going to try to twist it. And the sooner you can start reading between these lines, the better it is for you. And like the better, a lot of my experience has been because I've had to call people out. And it's like I said, like I've had men, well, like I could call them out and say like, well, I'm not interested. Like, oh, I'm not interested in you. I just want to be friends. And they'll totally get defensive. And you're like, dude, other people have read these comments and commented to me the same thing that I was thinking. And it is obvious that you have other intentions and just don't have the balls to say it to my face so I can reject you in real time. In a way that we're not a match. We're not on the same playing field. In the way that you have not done the work that I have done. And so that would be very unfair for me to partner myself with you when you're not my preference, you're not anything new, and I don't have those feelings. And just because I'm in a certain position right now financially where I'm working my finances out, I'm not that person who's just going to settle with a dude because I'm struggling financially. And that's what these people think. They know you because they think that you show up in certain, you see the overlapping, like you may be friendly, you may be naive, and maybe you're not as confident as you could be, and so they're partnering with someone who has the same sort of traits and does use men for money and does, you know, connect with men for money, and I'm just not that girl. And so settling is where I've had to recognize where I have done that with men that I am attracted to. And later, when I look at the attraction, I'm like, there was never really an attraction there. It was the idea that I wanted a safety net because I was going through something hard. And I think the further I get through these lessons, when you don't have the intention, so like you could, for me, it's like, well, it's not romantic, but I'm like, I was trying to work through my belief systems. Like, can you be friends with like who these people are in a way that like, you know, women and men being friends, and just me being friends with other women who are not, you know, you're wanting to inspire them, but at the same time, like I'm finding people just don't have that same intention towards you, or compassion or grace, and so it's not a match. And so that's where I moved from before, where like this could potentially be a romantic match, and now I'm like, I can't even be friends with people like this because like they're taking my friendliness and they're twisting it into something that they're not, and now that still feels heavy for me. And so like that's where I settled in this belief system, and now I have to, you know, I can't be friends with men right now. That's the men that are wanting to be friends with me are the ones that are wanting to use me and not actually come out and say straight to my face and get a real like answer. So they'd rather just kind of like beat around the bush and hope that for some reason I will, you know, close that distance so that they don't have to put themselves out for rejection. And this is like when men are willing to do that. This is women too. I've had women who, like, if I don't go to them like other women do, they feel rejected, and so they start targeting me. And these are women that are in marriages, have more resources, have more money, but for some reason, like, they're angry at me for doing something that maybe they want to do subconsciously but have chosen not to do it. And so there's a lot of like insecure people that are just like will end up targeting you and wanting to try to make you feel like you're someone who you're like that you're not. And what that is like realizing that you have more experience, you have more value in the way of like as a partner, because you've learned more, you've educated yourself, you've put it into practice, you have action. You don't just have ideas, you have action, and you've gotten yourself to a place in life where I don't have to fall into these controlling and codependent dynamics. And so selling for me has been that. It's been like, okay, what works, what does not. This still does not work. This I changed something, it's still not working. It's kind of like, you know, arranging furniture in a room. I'm like, you know what? I put the couch in a certain position, it doesn't work. Something still feels off. It's not working for my purpose. I have an idea, a lifestyle that I want, and I'm trying to become more organized and efficient. And so if this couch doesn't, if it's cutting me off and it's making me feel some sort of way about my room, then I got to change it, you know? And like, so like even in areas of my house, I'm like, you know what, this is not good enough. And it feels like I'm shoveling shit around my house, metaphorically, because I'm like, this is still not working. Like I feel trapped. And so that's when I know when I'm in settling energies, I feel trapped. And I also feel like, I also have to look at, like, why am I making a decision right now? Is it based on because I don't think that I can achieve something by myself? So a lot of times when I've settled, I've gone back to family members, I've gone back to past partners, I've gone back to work, like, dynamics. Excuse me. Is sorry, something caught me there. Because um wow, because I thought they had something that I didn't have, like I hadn't developed yet. And excuse me. Okay, so you see how I got tears in my eyes and choked up? There's an emotional tie to when you feel like I becoming independent is my biggest flex. That is the best thing I could do in my life is become independent. It helps clear out the feeder fish. You know, because feeder fish just aren't on narcissists; they're on people who are leveling up. The narcissist doesn't ever, like, they use people that they think are below them, but they also try to, like, aim higher. And like for me, being an empath, I would aim lower. It's interesting, right? So like, I had to start recognizing that too. Whereas, like, you know, I would you know, some people would be, you know, because they had money, but it wasn't their money. And so I would think, oh, they made money or they're successful, but it's like, well, no, it's not their money, or they did it through different means than I would make money. And so I would think, how did they do that? But so I used to think like I needed all these people in my life to become successful, and the people, it was tied through my emotional place where it was emotional. It was like, well, okay, so like if I don't have people in my life, how am I going to do this? But in reality, I can do this, and I'm gonna do it, and I'm doing it. So the more I could tap into that emotion, the emotionality, would you call it, the emotional investment, the better I could cut that emotion off. And so I'm gonna do another video about that. So for me, the settling was I did not feel safe and secure on my own, and so I would stop because I thought that's how far I could go, or that was the best I could get. And I was scared to move forward by myself because there was like a big leap of faith that I had to take. And when you don't know what this looks like, it can be shaky grounds. And there are times when I have to go back, like I said, to jobs, like I said, to people. That's something that's a little bit challenging. It's not like I go back to people, but I'm still friendly to people, even though I know they're lying straight to my face, whether it be their intentions. You know, they're different to my face than they are behind my back. You know, they're talking shit behind my back, but they're friendly to my face. It could be people who, you know, in one room they'll be friendly and outspoken, but in other arenas they act like they don't know me. So like, pay attention to these things, because for me, I'm not settling in that. Just because I haven't had a friendly face in my life that has been good intention does not mean I have to settle with one because it's kind of like good enough. That's good enough. Well, you're friendly every once in a while, so like that's better than nothing. Is it? Because like that person now wants to tie yourself or tie themselves to you, whether it be to get information from you or to get some sort of like reputation from you or some sort of like, you know, spotlight energy from you, but they really don't have, they're still using and abusing you. So if you brought up an abusive relationship and environment and connections, that's still settling. So I think that's all I got for that one. I'm going to cut this off here. I'm trying to make my videos a bit shorter. So be sure to like and subscribe if you find this interesting and helpful. I'm going to be talking more about what I experienced and what I learned through those experiences instead of doing the card readings. The cards are fun, but they're not. I get bored with them. And it's not something I can do for a long period of time. And I've started recognizing, like, when I do this, it makes me feel like this. And so I really enjoy that I can just go on screen and pull the cards and come up with messages, but in reality, it's fast energy for me, and it's not accurate energy. Well, there are accurate advice and experiences and lessons that I learned that I can tie into the cards. It's still kind of like that sort of religion, spirituality sort of area, to where it's not something I want to lead with. And I have gained a lot of my experience through me and putting myself in situations, and the cards have been like kind of like a side thing. So I'm going to start leading more with me and what I know and what I've learned and how I've learned it, as opposed to the cards. So if you're here for the cards, you're going to have to find, like, there's a lot of other people out there that do cards. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.